Hey folks, thanks so much for tuning in. Really appreciate it. Several weeks ago, I did a sermon on Islam, and it was a minor point that I made in the whole message, but I commented that the perception that Islam is inherently violent is a mistaken perception. And then I wrote a piece on it, and then I tweeted some things on it, and I got a lot of blowback, which I love. I mean, I think it's great. I think whenever you stir up conversation, that's good. It's good. We need to have this conversation. I recently was challenged through email. Someone wanted to debate me on this. Have a public debate on this, and I want to explain to you, because I think it's relevant to this discussion, why I'm not interested in that debate. All right, I've noticed that in the dialogues with people about this issue is that people use the word inherent in very different ways. It's I guess a pretty ambiguous word. It's apparently a pretty ambiguous word. The way I use it, the way I think about it, is that if Islam is inherently violent, you couldn't possibly have a Muslim who was committed to nonviolence. Now, I know of Muslims who are complete, unconditional pacifists. And so, by my definition, Islam can't be inherently violent. Now, others I see use it in much less stringent ways. In fact, there's a whole spectrum of ways. And that makes then trying to discuss this issue very difficult, because it's an ambiguous word. What would it take to prove that Islam is or is not an inherently violent religion? Well, it depends on the word inherent. What percentage of Muslims have to be violent for it to qualify as inherently violent? So I think people are often talking past each other on this issue, and until you resolve exactly what the word inherent means, it really is not a very productive conversation. But much more fundamentally is this point. From a kingdom perspective, it shouldn't matter one bit whether Islam is or is not inherently violent, whatever you mean by that. We are called to reflect the character of our Father by loving indiscriminately, the way He does. By loving like the sun shines and like the rain falls. We don't pick and choose who we love, we just love. And this is the criteria for being considered a child of God, according to Matthew 5, 44 and 45, and Luke 6, verses 27 through 35. This qualifies us to be considered children of God, that we love our enemies, bless our enemies, do good to our enemies, pray for those who despitefully use us. And so it shouldn't matter at all whether the person in front of us or the person on the other side of the ocean, whether they're trying to kill us and send bombs our way, or whether they want to send us chocolates and a Valentine's card. I mean, it shouldn't matter a bit. Our job is to love regardless of whether the person in front of us is friend or foe, whether they merit it or not. And so in some ways, it's beginning to occur to me that the whole discussion about whether or not the certain people who follow a certain religion, whether that religion is inherently violent or not, that can really just be a big distraction. Because it almost makes it look like that's an important question to answer, and then we'll decide how we're going to respond. But our response should not at all be dependent on that. So I really don't care whether it's inherently violent or not, even if I didn't know what that word meant. It doesn't change our call at all. So I encourage us, if you want to discuss that issue, that's fine. But don't think there's any significance in it in terms of how we should respond. Our response is and must always be the same. Live in love as Christ loved us and gave His life for us. God bless you guys. Go out and love on the world.